What's happening, everyone? This is Zach Edwards with another episode of the Adventure Box Podcast, brought to you by Historical Conquest. This is a game where people can play with history, just having fun. It's like a game like Pokemon, looks like Pokemon, plays like the game of Risk, but where all the cards are historically based, with people, events, documents, inventions, all these different things. And you get to try to take over the world, much like Risk, and dominate your opponent. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about, in the podcast, this is a curriculum class, but people like to listen to this just for fun, just to hear what's going on. So let's get into this. Let me tell you a little bit about the Louisiana Purchase. Okay, so I'm going to give you some stats. Do you know what the Louisiana Purchase is? Okay, let me go back and we'll get to the stats in just a second. So this wasn't just a simple real estate transaction when the United States bought a huge chunk of land, which actually I'll show you a picture of that right here. Okay, so it's about 23% of the U.S. of the United States. This was not just a simple transaction, though. It doubled the size of the United States at this point. So right now, at this point in 1803, we were basically this size. This was Indian Territory, this was Spanish Florida, and this was Canada. So we only owned that little spot right there. So it's more than doubling the size of the country. Now, at this point, we actually had France that owned this area. Now, France had somewhat given it over to Spain. They gave it a ability for them to have it. But it went back and forth between Spain and France. So this whole movement, this purchase, allowed the United States and his people to travel west and be able to take over land and grow and expand from there. This was the westward expansion. But how did it happen? What led President Thomas Jefferson, we talked about him on Monday, to buy this big plot of land from, funny enough, Napoleon Bonaparte? Really? Yeah, Napoleon Bonaparte, during the French Revolution, was the leader of France. He had taken over a large portion of Europe at this point. Italy, going into the Prussian area he's pushing into. And so at this point, he saw the Louisiana Purchase, the area that they owned, the territories that they owned, Louisiana Territory, to be not as needed. He needed to fund his war in Europe, and he needed money. Well, what did the U.S. government have? Well, it didn't have money. The truth is, they didn't really have the money to do it. Okay, so why did France control the Louisiana Territory? Let's go over that really fast. Okay, so remember, France came in. They were up here. The British were down here in the 13 colonies. France moved down and claimed a lot of this land, all the way down to New Orleans and some of Louisiana, and basically gave a lot of this up to the Spanish when the French and Indian War happened, because they didn't want to give up all the land and control over the Mississippi River. So France deeded it over to Spain. Spain said, hey, British, you can't take this. We have this. This is our land. Well, during some negotiations by Bonaparte, he actually was able to get it back from them. And now here's another thing. Here's another question that we'll go into later on. But how did this impact the Native Americans as well? Well, I guess there are two other questions. Settlers, how did it affect the settlers, and also the balance of power in the United States? And we're going to go over all those later on. So, background, France had control over the Louisiana area. They wanted money. They needed money. Bonaparte needed money. Napoleon. They made a deal with Jefferson to buy more land so they could move westward. Now, the United States could have just moved westward into there, but then they'd probably get into another battle with Napoleon. So Napoleon says, I need $15 million. They said, we can give you $15 million. I don't know how. We can give you $15 million. So they were able to strike up a deal. We're going to go over that deal as we get into it. So first, let's go into a little bit of the background. How did France get Louisiana? Before the United States bought Louisiana, there was a vast territory, huge, again, that was settled by the French. They claimed down, they actually started back in 1682. They basically claimed the Louisiana Territories. Now, this was not actually fully mapped. They just said, hey, we have this big stretch of land from basically Montana down to New Orleans. They had set up a town, New Orleans. They had forts all throughout the Louisiana area. After the French and Indian War, you had the Indian area over in the Ohio Valley, and you had the Americans fighting the British. French just said, hey, we're just sitting back. This is our land. We're going to keep collecting all this, these assets from this land. And you can do what you want with this war because we're not going to play a part. Oh, wait a second. You're going to be influenced. We're going to be influenced by your war. Okay, we're going to side with the colonists and help them once they showed us that they could actually fight you because we hate you, British. Yeah, we don't like you at all. You're a pittance to us. Go away. And because they're always in a battle with Britain and France during this time. So at this point, you have, let's say, about 1762, the French lost the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War, and gave that land over to Spain as part of the Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris was between the British and the French. The French did not want to give Britain this land, so basically deeded it over to Spain, like I said before. For nearly 40 years, Spain controlled Louisiana, but it was more of just a buffer zone between basically Spanish Mexico, this area, the Spanish territories here, and the expansion of the U.S. They knew at some point they were going to lose it. So Napoleon's dream was to recapture the land. In 1800, remember when we just talked about that huge election that we had inside the United States? That war that basically was the Second American Revolution? The ruler of France, Napoleon, secretly negotiated with Spain to get Louisiana back from them. This was called the Treaty of San Ildefonso. Now, because of this treaty, Napoleon wanted to rebuild the French Empire in the Americas using Louisiana. And Louisiana was supposed to provide them with food and supplies and other goods that they could sell on the market. And it would be all brought to them, like from New Orleans, shipped down to Haiti, which was Saint Domingue. Okay? I don't know. Haiti. But something unexpected happened. Haiti, their enslaved population, revolted at the time. And because they revolted, France had to take care of that because they needed Haiti. And I'm going to butcher this name, I apologize. Toussaint Louverture, they defeated the French in 1802. Yeah, that's right. Haiti defeated France in 1802. Napoleon was too occupied with his European war. With this Korean Empire basically collapsing, Napoleon no longer needed Louisiana. He couldn't do it. He needed cash. He needed cash for his war. So he went to Jefferson. Now, Jefferson had a dilemma. So the U.S., in the U.S., the president, who was Jefferson at the time, was worried about France's control of New Orleans because they basically shut off the Mississippi River. Because of their control of the Mississippi River, the U.S. was not able to get ships up there and create these trade routes. And the American farmers in the west side of the United States at the time, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi territories, they couldn't get their goods out. It was the easiest way going down the Mississippi River, but the French had basically shut them off. If Napoleon closed New Orleans to U.S. troops, it would cripple the economy. Or sorry, not to U.S. troops, U.S. trade. It would cripple the economy and hurt all the settlers. So in 1802, Spain revoked U.S. crossing the New Orleans and crossing through with the Mississippi River. This caused panic, and the American settlers panicked at this time. They had no way of getting their goods to market because they were over here and their markets were over here. You can't travel across land. It's not cost effective. Jefferson sent a diplomat. His name was Robert Livingston. We actually have a YouTube video of him in our YouTube channel. And James Monroe, who we also do as well. They went to negotiate with France. Now, originally, they offered $15 million for just New Orleans. What are they going to do with the rest of the land? Britain had all of this land, Canada and into Washington and Oregon area, Idaho, all this land in Canada. Louisiana would have been completely shut off if they bought it for $10 million, just New Orleans, which was down here. There's no way France would be able to get stuff up and out of Louisiana Purchase because the United States could cut them off. So Napoleon's like, I am smarter than they are. I will get them to give me more money. So at first, the U.S. wanted just New Orleans, but Napoleon had a bigger offer in mind. He had more ideas in a sense. And I do not know why he would have sold it for $15 million, but he did. April of 1803, he sold it for $15 million. Now, again, Napoleon had no use for it now that he had lost Haiti, which was to process all that. He needed money, basically against his war against Britain. And as I said, this is on the border of Britain. Britain could all of a sudden come in down and taken over Louisiana Purchase too. So Napoleon's like, I don't have any power in America. I need to centralize my power. And then when I take over the world, then I can go after everything else. But until then, it is all yours, America. So Livingston and Monroe couldn't believe their luck. Yes, let's do it. But they also didn't have official approval to buy all of Louisiana. Still, they quickly accepted it. Oh, if your diplomats go over and you're the president, Thomas Jefferson must have had a heyday with these guys. Well, actually he did. When Jefferson received the news of the deal, first he was thrilled and also concerned. This was his dilemma. As a strict constitutionalist, Jefferson believed in the Constitution, and it did not explicitly allow the president to buy foreign land. There's nothing in the Constitution that allowed to buy foreign land. The Federalists opposed that deal. Again, central government favored Britain. The land was too vast to govern. That was their opposition. The purchase would increase the power of the Democratic Republicans. Oh, another one. Political parties. And it was unconstitutional. Remember, Federalists, larger government, Constitution, favored Constitution. So, that being said, they were basically contradicting themselves. Jefferson was able to find a solution. He justified the purchase under the president's power to make treaties. Yes! The Louisiana Purchase became a treaty. It was not just a land buy. It was not a real estate deal. On October 20th, 1806. Again, remember, they made the agreement in April of 1803. And I think I said 1806, 1803. October 20th, 1803, 6 months later, the Senate ratified the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the United States. The settlers were thrilled. Everyone loved the Democratic Republican Party. Why? More land, more settlement. Manifest destiny to go west. Now, how big was the Louisiana Purchase? I got you some statistics on it. Pulled these out. Okay, so first off, the dollar amount was $15 million. There was 828,000 square miles. So in acres, that's 530 million acres. That basically comes out to 3 cents per acre. Right now, in my area of northern Kansas City, I have to spend in my city about $200,000 for about 10 acres. 10 acres, $200,000. If I wanted 20 acres, it's about $500,000. It's $15 million for 530 million acres. Holy cow, the prices has gone up a lot. Of course, this has been what, 220 years or so. Okay, let's give it a land breakdown. Now, this is interesting as well. Present day U.S., this is about 23% of the continental U.S. Number of future states that were affected, 15 states all fit into this. Here, I'll give you a better view. 15 states all fit within here. So Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, part of Texas, Kansas, part of New Mexico, part of Canada, Colorado, Nebraska, Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, part of Minnesota. That was a lot of stinking land. Now, they say that if it was sold today, it would come out to be about, the worth of all that land would be about $1.3 trillion, not billion. So we were going from what they bought for $15 million, not billion, trillion, $1.2 trillion today. The land value, depending on their location, is estimated to be about $1.2 trillion of a value. That was such a good buy. Holy cow. Now, oh, oops. Okay, so there's other, sorry, I just got a call and I just got distracted. I'm waiting for something that's very important for my kids, so I have to have my phone on. And I apologize for that. Okay, now, here's the other thing. Population of the Louisiana Territories at this point was 60,000 people over this whole land. And that includes 15 states. 60,000 people. And that's indigenous tribes included, settlers, and enslaved people. And now there's what? 5.3 million at least in that area? Yeah. So that's a lot of numbers. Okay. Back to the Louisiana Purchase. So after this buy, Thomas Jefferson on cloud 9, he just made this huge purchase. Now, interesting enough, if you look, the Louisiana Purchase also had some of Canada, but because they wanted a straight line, no, it's probably because I don't know what it was. They actually negotiated to chop that off, give it to Canada, and take part of this area, actually this area, which was controlled by the British, and make it a straight line across. So, nice trade. There was no waterways or anything like that that controls that. Like there are waterways that control a lot of these borders. Nope, just a straight across. That's it. Which is interesting because this is a little bit of a into Canada area, and also all of this. I wonder about that little area. What could be there? It's like a thumbs up in that area. There's got to be something over there. Why we didn't give that to Canada and just continue the straight line all the way to the lakes? I don't know. So, anyways. Okay, so this is some of the great things that have to do with the Louisiana Purchase. But what happened afterwards? So Jefferson, again, Cloud 9, immediately sent an expedition to explore this new land. This was led by Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. The Lewis and Clark expedition in 1804. Their goal was to map the territories established by the trade. Now they actually went further and they went all the way to the Pacific, which was not their land, it was British land. But they still wanted to map it all the way there. And if it wasn't for one woman, that's right, in history, women play huge parts. And a lot of times we don't like focusing on them, but if it wasn't for Sacagawea, a Shoshone woman who played a crucial role in this expedition, it would never have happened. Here's the interesting part. Sacagawea was actually stolen by another tribe when she was a child. And this tribe actually took her in as their own and made her believe that she was part of their tribe. Now later on it actually came out that she was not part of that tribe. She actually was married off to a French settler for money. So this tribe married her off to a French, not settler, a frontiersman. This frontiersman was actually contacted by Lewis and Clark and asked if he would join the expedition. This guy's like, hey, I've got an even better plan. I've got a wife who can speak the language of the Shoshone, and also a lot of the other tribes. we can use her help. So Sacagawea, who was pregnant at the time, went on this expedition with her French husband and also the Lewis and Clark expedition. 2 years. It took them 2 years and 8,000 miles. Lewis and Clark proved the land was full of opportunity and mapped out their route from, I think they went from St. Louis up to Junction or Council Bluff, where they actually counseled. I think this is around the area where they were able to hire on the French frontiersmen and Sacagawea, and then went west. So this is great. This is all great information. Well, here's another topic. Okay, so we talked about Lewis and Clark. What about the impact of the Native Americans? The Louisiana Purchase was a devastating blow, a disaster for the Native Americans in that area. That was all Native American area. It wasn't fully purchased or established by European settlers and such, or those from Mexico and such. So it was devastating to them. The U.S. claimed the land that the indigenous people had lived in for centuries. Now remember, I will give the other side. The indigenous people were also fighting with other tribes and claiming each other's land, taking it from each other. So, yeah, that did happen. Now, as American settlers moved west, the conflict between the Native Americans and the settlers increased, which we will talk about later on. We're going to be talking about the expansion in this, let's see, not this next one, not the War of 1812, but the next one we're going to be talking about the expedition, the westward expansion. Okay, so this was the beginning of forced removal. This is when it started, about 1830, when they created the Indian Removal Act of 1830. So devastating for the Native Americans. Okay, how about the expansion of slavery and the political conflict? Okay, so this was an interesting debate and struggle here. So with new land came a new debate. Which states would be slave states and which states would be free states? So at this point, you basically had a divide throughout the country of free states and not free states. Let's go back. It's easier here. So the southern states, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Wait a second. That's a big divide. So at this point, they were freaking out that more land over here would create more free land as well. The North and the South were already clashing at this point. Free states, non-free states. This tension led to the Missouri Compromise of 1820. This is where they tried to balance free states from slave states. And it worked out somewhat well, but not always. So there's a lot of compromises in this time. And we'll go over that later on. Actually, next month when we talk about the melting pot, we're going to be talking about slavery, and we'll be bringing this in as part of that. And then when we talk about the westward expansion, we'll also be bringing that in as well. So the Louisiana Purchase accelerated America's westward expansion, but also deepened this tension that would ultimately lead to the Civil War. Okay, that's not for like 4 months from now. So don't worry about it at this point. Worry mostly about the melting pot, because we're going to be talking about this. Next month, we're going to be talking about slavery, Native Americans, the religious that were in the country, and also immigrants. Melting pot. It's a have to read or have to listen to for next month, because we go all into that. And that brings us to what's happening today as well. So stay tuned. So let's wrap this up. The Louisiana Purchase was more than just a land deal, right? It was a treaty. It was a masterful theater plan and a balancing act. It was so many different things. So it doubled the size of the U.S. at the time, expanded westward for settlers, and increased tensions with the Native Americans and also the South, the slave owners. So it was a brilliant move and a mistake. That's what they considered it at the time. Jefferson himself wasn't sure at first if it was a good deal, but in hindsight, it transformed the American continent. It created a larger portion of the the United States. But that's the question. So let me ask you this. What do you think? Was the Louisiana Purchase by Jefferson the greatest achievement that Jefferson ever did? Was it a great achievement? Was it a bad achievement? Did it create more problems than it solved? I'm leaving that up to you. To me, that's a fairly straightforward question in a lot of ways, but there could be some other ways of thinking of it. Please put your comments in the comments below. Love to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the Louisiana Purchase. Until tomorrow, again, we're going to be talking about, I think we have, this is the last week of Persia. I think so. And then we're going to be going into, what? Greece. So stay tuned for that. Next week, we're going to be going into a new curriculum. This is the melting pot. So stay tuned for that as well when it comes to the United States history, early U.S. history. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will catch you next time. Have a great day. Take care, everyone. Bye. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow, actually. Take care. Bye.